everyone, Matthew here, the beginner woodturner. I hope everyone's having a good day and enjoying the beautiful weather. Well, I am at least. Today we're going to have a little bit of a different video. I'm not going to be talking about turning, and I'm not going to be turning anything. I'm going to be talking about salvaging wood and where to get your wood stocks to make all your beautiful projects. The very simple answer is you find them. You just go around and you find them. You never buy blanks, you don't go to stores, you just find them. For example, I have this beautiful piece of olive wood that was given to me by a neighbor who is an arborist. And finding a piece like this to make projects would be hard because olive wood is not something that's normally found, and if it is, it's not normally milled for construction or any other use. It's more of an exotic wood, making it that it would be quite expensive to make anything out of this kind of size, like a vase, for example, of this size. Same thing goes for all these birch logs. All these were free. I didn't pay anything for these. And I can make a bunch of bowls, roughly, out of this, probably 100 bowls. All for free. You sell them for a profit. So, when you're starting out, your best friend is Marketplace and a good chainsaw. So, you can collect a bunch of wood of various different species just by looking around and seeing what people are trying to get rid of or what arborists have cut down. But once you've collected your wood of various sizes, you have to know what to do with it. Because the way you process the wood to let it dry will vastly determine what kind of projects you'll be able to make with them. Let me explain. Alright, so here I have a beautiful log. It's about 12 inches in diameter, so a nice decent sized log to make a bunch of projects and bowls. Now, when you're looking at logs, it's important to realize one thing. This right here is the center of the log. That is called the pith. That is the single most biggest enemy for any wood turner, carpenter, or anything. This is the big problem, because as you can see, already, you have a split there, a split there, a split there, and a split there. So you have 4 splits originating from that center, which, by the way, is porous. So you don't want that. As soon as you collect your log and you want to process it, because you can keep logs for a long period of time if you leave them in log form without cutting them up, the first thing you do is you want to get rid of that. This is the biggest problem that you'll have when it comes to wood turning. Removing the pith is the most important part of processing logs. Now, how are we going to do that? There's many ways. The first thing you can do is just cut straight through the pith. So just make a line and just cut straight through it. And that releases the tension inside the log, because the pith is where all the tension is, and that's what makes it crack. So all these cracks are originating from that pith. So you want to get that tension out to reduce as much cracking. I don't particularly enjoy this. I only do this technique with very, very small logs that are too small to do this technique, which is cutting up a slab. So what cutting up a slab means is you're going to cut on either side of the pith, just as such, and then you're going to cut here and here. So now we're taking out that center part. The center part of the log on both sides of the log, we're taking it completely out. So this part and this part is 100% clear timber. There is no pith, there's no chance of it cracking. Well, there's still chance of it cracking, but the chances are greatly, greatly, greatly reduced. So that's what you want to do. So you want to remove this section. And unfortunately, I am all for recycling, but this section you can't really do anything with it, because of that pith, as soon as the piece of work is going to get rehumidified, or it's going to dry quickly, or any sort of temperature related thing that's going to happen to it, humidity rises and lows, that is always full of tension, and that's where it's going to crack, even if it's been turned for a while, even if it's been turned for a year. Because that pith is still there, if you rehumidify, for example, if you use it as a bowl or make a spoon or a spatula out of it and you put it in water, that can still crack. If you put it in the dishwasher, for example, that can crack. So you can't really do anything with this. You can cut it up into smaller sections to make pen blanks, but that section here is always going to be trash. It's unfortunate, but But that, taking this out as soon as possible, saves the rest of the log. So that's how you're going to do it. So the first thing is to cut these sections here. Now, one thing I like to do as well is to look at either sides of the blank. So here we have a pretty shallow little half log. It's about 4 inches. Now, usually what I would do is cut a tenon. So, for example, this one on this side, this is 7 inches. What I will do is just cut off a little section here to make a straight face, and that's going to be where the tenon's going to go, and the bowl is going to go here. So that's something that I would normally do. Another factor that you can do is look at this very thick piece. That's about 6 inches. Get a 12-inch bowl out of this 6-inch log. Okay, that's pretty deep. That's a deep bowl. I could also decide to just cut another slab right there and get a nice little dish or box out of that. And then have one section here, and that's scrap. This side, I won't do that tenon because I want to preserve this bark to make a live edge piece. So a 12-inch live edge piece. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to trim that up. I'm going to cut this for 12-inch by, let's say 12 by 4 inches thick. So that puts me at around here. So another thing I can do is just cut this out like this, or I could just cut a huge blank. I'm going to cut it 4 inches, so about there, right into here. So I'll have a nice big blank for a bowl there, nice live edge, and 2 1/4 sawn pieces. So let's get done with that. Now, another important thing to invest in when collecting wood is a good chainsaw. So this is a Stihl MS391 65cc saw. Very powerful saw with a nice 24-inch bar. This is going to allow me to get one cut. Because one thing you don't want when processing is a chainsaw with a short bar where you have to go on one side, then turn around and go on the other side, and then turn around. That, one, is more time consuming, and second, it augments the chances of you getting your cuts off and losing wood that way. Because if your cuts are not perfectly straight and you have like a, put this down, if your cuts are not perfectly straight, you don't get one half on one side and the other half on the other side. You get this mix mash, and then you have to recut on the bandsaw to get the perfect flat surface, and then you just lose timber. So having one straight bar that's long allows you to cut this in one go. One cut straight down allows you to get one perfect plane. So let's just see, this log is 18 inches. So you might be thinking, oh, well, I only need an 18-inch bar. Wrong. An 18-inch bar, what will usually happen is there's like a 2-inch section of it, or 3-inch, that's going to be sitting inside the chainsaw. That's going to be sitting right about here. So from there to there, that's like 3 inches of bar loss. So this is a 24-inch bar, but in reality, it's 25 with the chain. So it gives you about 24 inches, but 18-inch, you'd kind of be just on the outside. You'd just be a little bit outside of the range. But having 24 allows me to get really good clearance on either side, and it allows for less chain to be worked, because the more chain that you actually use, the more demanding it is for the chainsaw, which you don't want. So let's get this started up and we'll get cutting. So ear protection on. You always want your ear protection. I have my chaps on, Husqvarna. I know this is a Stihl chainsaw, but I'm a Husky guy. So put that on. Start that up. So I always like to start with deep cuts. Get them out of the way as soon as possible. As you can see, perfectly clear timber. There's no evidence of a pift. There's no evidence of any sort of cracking. So this, about 1 inch, is going to become probably a set of plates or small plates once this dries. So I'll show you how to dry these afterwards. Now, we still have the pift to take out. We don't want to touch this side at all. We just want to do the pift. So that's what we're going to do. So start this up. There we have it. Our one slab. And as you can see, we have the pift here on this side. And if you turn it around, pift there. So now, this and this, 100% clear timber. No pift, no nothing. So now what we're going to do is on the bandsaw, we're going to cut right there. Let me just get my pencil. We're going to cut right there and right there. And that's going to allow us to have these two sections of clear timber, no pift. I'm telling you, the first thing you want to do every single time when it comes to processing wood is getting rid of the pift as soon as possible. It will cause you the most amount of headaches. Another thing is you want your chainsaw chain to be perfectly sharp. Not only perfectly sharp, you want it to be perfectly well aligned and well sharpened, because if it doesn't, it's not like that, it doesn't give straight cuts. Now you might be thinking, well Matthew, you didn't really follow your lines on that one, but as you can see, I didn't follow my line, but that's straight. My line wasn't straight. So if your chainsaw chain is perfectly sharpened and well adjusted on both sides of the teeth, I'll eventually make a video on that, how to do that. Then you'll get a perfectly good straight cut, which is what you want, because you want nice slabs that are nice and straight on each side, which will just make the whole process of turning easier. Because if it's all wobbly, well then what will happen is that it will be off-centered on the lathe, and then you'll have to turn slower, and that will take more time, and it will be a little bit harder on your tools and on your machine. So you want your cuts to be perfectly straight, and you want them to be at the right thickness. So this one is a pretty good example of that. That's perfect. The only one that I'm a little bit disappointed is in this one. So you can see it's a little bit thicker up here than it is down here. Not a lot, a little bit. This is going to be mellowed out when I cut it into a circle. So yeah, so that's how I would process a log. So that's kind of what you want to look for, and what you want to do when you get to when you get access to big, nice logs like that. Right, so I hope you guys learned a little bit about how to process wood in this video. This is really a basic log. There's a lot of logs aren't perfect. There's some logs that are really weird. Others are really simple. So this is just a basic log, how you would process just a standard cylindrical log for you to get the maximum amount of blanks out of it, and with reducing the amount of splits that will create during the drying process. Again, all wood is different. Every species has its particularities. Some species crack a lot, some species don't. It really depends. So what I would suggest is just collect as much wood as you can, fill up as much storage space you can with wood, and just process different species as you go along, because you'll learn a lot more about each species when you turn multiples of them. And if you only turn one, then try that process with the new species. Each species has its own little thing. For example, in my case, apple wood, I am very more cautious with the drying process. I try to reduce the drying process as much as I can, while as with maple, I just air dry it and turn it really thin because maple doesn't crack. So it really depends, but I hope you learned a little bit. And as always, happy turning, or in this case, happy processing, and we'll see you next time.